Sexy old Nigel.
Mickey, buddy.
Mick, did you cut your hair off?
Yes, I did, buddy.
I
Back to a normal
thought I was
person again. No. I got tired of waking up in the middle of the night chewing my hair. I kept thinking I had a new girlfriend, but when I woke up, she wasn't there.
Well, then your old girlfriend was still there.
Always there. Always there. Always there. I love you, darling. Thank you.
Smokey the Bandit.
Absolutely. Well, you're all looking rather lovely. Nigel, you're in your normal, relaxed, leaning back position. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad we can't see the bottom half with Toto.
He's been fixed.
Oh, ouch.
Hey. All right, well, let's get going.
Yes, go for it.
Let's get chatting away.
All right, so Nigel,
are you going to put an intro on this, Tim, or do you
we'll put one on beforehand. Yeah, we're still working on that, but there'll be an intro. So intro will happen, and then we cut in. So be intro, all access, all that. Danny, Tim, blah blah blah. So from that place,
Mick Treadwell, living legend.
Yes,
you're right. Nigel, what's yours?
Living legend in my own lunchtime.
Oh, look, you're floating Danny away. Look at that. He's gone.
I just wanted to close the door because I didn't want to, make the youngins think I was having a heart attack in here or something. So let's assume that you've already done your intro. Why don't you turn it over to me so I can talk about them for a minute, and then just jump in with some of your questions.
Yep, absolutely. So, Danny, tell us about Nigel and Mick and what they do.
Well,
okay, I'm done.
Just for a reference, Nigel, when did you start working with me? What year?
March 28th, 1991.
Oh,
and Mick?
And 92. Sometime in 92.
So
right after that.
So, but we knew each other previously from other shows that you guys had worked on tours and on the road and stuff.
Absolutely.
That is correct.
David Gilmour and Julian Lennon, amongst others.
Right. Well, right. You were around for the Mesa Amphitheater and Symphony Hall shows you did. I remember, I'll never forget Nigel coming in the office wearing blue jeans and a shirt with a tie.
It's the only time.
It's the only time.
He still wears the tie, but he stopped wearing the blue jeans.
So what happens, Tim? What happens in promoting land is it's one thing to get around to the point in your career where you can buy good names, good shows, big names, little names, whatever. But in order to have any shows happen and to get a next show, you've got to have somebody on hand other than yourself to look after the show itself. Like from my standpoint, as the promoter, I'll cut the deal for the show. I'll make the deal with the building or the hall, the venue, where the show is going to play on whatever date it's going to be, and we work out all those arrangements. And then Nigel or Mick would take over from there, and I wouldn't ever touch anything to do with the production of the show if I could help it. And generally, I would never ever have to think about that because it seems like every time I do, something goes awry. So I discovered a long time ago it was best for me to stay the hell out of the way. Somebody's going to get hurt. So one of these guys would be on hand after advancing the show by email and telephone calls and what have you over months or weeks or whatever. So the day of the show, the band will come in and Nigel or Mick would meet them with the crew and there's catering already there, and there's security in the building, and there's stagehands ordered, and off we go, and the show's getting put up. They have breakfast, they have lunch. I don't think they do any work. I think they just eat food all day long, and and then I show up and we have dinner, and the eating continues. But seriously, without these guys, I don't exist. I don't have shows.
Right.
I'm not going to tell somebody about flying points and rigging and trim, and I mean, I'll use these words in a totally different definition, but not when it comes to concerts. You know, I'll never forget the first time I heard the trim height. I'm going, what am I, in a porno movie? No. Anyway. So, I mean, Tim, that's pretty much it, but you can dig away some layers deeper. Ask these guys anything. They're an open book.
Well, yeah, guys, I definitely look. We have known each other, and through my years of radio and doing shows, we have worked together. I've probably driven both of you nuts at some point along the way. But I think where I want to start, and let's go with Nigel first. Then Mick is like, and you guys tag team. Tell us, like, from nuts to bolts, like, what do you guys do? And obviously, there's not a lot of catering, and your job starts long before the day of the show with advancement and all that. So tell us about, like, take us behind the scenes and all of what happens.
Well, there's, as Danny said, once he's bought the show and he's done all the financials with it, he would walk into my office and give me a file and go, let's take Journey. You're wearing a Journey shirt. Journey, let's say it's mid-90s and they're in 10 or 12 trucks. So at that point, I'd take over. I would contact the Journey production manager, and he would want to know as much information about the facility that they were coming into with all those trucks. And I would give him all the nuts and bolts about it. And then we would talk about what type of stage crew that he'd want, how many people, truck loaders, riggers, lighting people, audio people, and the list goes on. And then we'd move on to catering, and that catering's such a painful thing to deal with. It really is. I mean, you're feeding like 150 people. You know, if you're in 10 or 12 trucks, then you're going to be in at least 7 or 8 buses, because there's 10 to 12 people to a bus, generally a crew bus. Right. So, and then the bands come. You know, generally each band member has his own bus. So in the end, you're ending up with 12, 13 buses, 150 people. And then you've got to feed the local crew as well at the same time. Because if you tell a local crew to leave and go find food and come back, you'll never see them again. So you kind of have to lock the gates and feed them and keep them there so you can put the show on. So then once we've gone through everything and we've set everything in place, I would send him all my notes. He would send me all his notes, and we'd both read through them. And if I had any comments, I'd call him back and go, hey, you know what? You made a mistake. Load in 7 o'clock and you've got it 8 o'clock. You know, small things like that. And then the day of the show would come, and generally I would always get there. If loading was at 8 o'clock with 10, 12 trucks, I would always get there 6:30, 7 o'clock at the very latest. Because even unloading trucks at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're still going to have all the crew guys that want to come out and shower. You know, the crew get off the buses at 7:15 in the morning, and you've got to make sure all the showers are open, the water's hot, the towels are there. Because believe me, when these guys come off the buses in the morning after a 7 or 8 hour drive, they are just some cranky people. And a lot of them have got good hangovers too. So you got to know how to deal with people. You got to be a people person, and you got to think through their eyes in the morning. You really do. And I was on the road for 18 years, so I get it. You know, I know how to talk and think that to think through their eyes and make them happy. And the first hour of the day is the most crucial point of the day. You make friends with the truck drivers, the bus drivers, the crew guys. And then once the day starts, it kind of gets into autopilot, because these crew guys, they do this every day of their lives on tour. If they're on a US tour for 8 or 9 months, they'll do this 5 times a week. So they don't want us telling them how to do their job. They just want to find the stage. They want to get fed. They want to get good labor. They want the doors open on time. They want a good audience, pack the trucks up in a timely manner, wave them goodbye, and we all go home. Simple as that.
It sounds, honestly, I get anxiety just listening to you talk about it, because
some of the difficult stuff is again, you've got a show in 10, 12, 15 trucks. They're flying 125, 150,000 pounds in the air of equipment. When you're sitting out in the audience and you look up and you see all these trusses and all these lights and all this, the audio, you don't correlate that to any weight at all. But for us doing the advance work, he'll go, the production manager will go, okay, here's the rigging points. We've got 115 rigging points and we're at 150,000 pounds. Can your roof take it? So you've really got to do your homework, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts here. You got to be right. You cannot be wrong on these decisions. You can't tell a production manager, yeah, it'll probably take it. You can't do that. It's got to be, it'll take it. It's not going to take it. I've got a doubt about it. I'm going to get an engineering report, and I'm going to send this to some engineers. I'll go back to Danny, and I go, hey, Danny, I need an engineering report, and it's going to be $2,500 to $3,000. He wouldn't argue with it. Do you really need it? We don't want it to come crashing down on everybody's head. So we get the engineering report, and the engineers will come back to us and say, you have to move these points here. You got to move this here. You made the right decision getting an engineering report. But there's a lot of times where if they're under 100,000 pounds and the roof's very capable of taking $125 or $150, you can comfortably say, yeah, that'll take it. We're good. Let's go ahead and do it. And by the same token, you've got to have really good local riggers that can go up in the air and hang this stuff. You need to have guys that really know what they're doing. I can't do it. I get dizzy when I put thick socks on, let alone going up into the roof.
Indeed.
So you've got to be logistics. You've got to be great with people, making people happy. It's really working on different sides of your brain. Mick and Nigel, how do you guys do it? You're maestros.
Well, Nigel just really summed it up. I'll fill in with a couple of things that I think are important. But as he said, Nigel toured, and so did I. We all went out on some pretty big tours on that time. And having that experience really helped you be a good promoter rep and production manager.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
You've seen the other side of the story. You know what's coming in. You know what you're dealing with. I remember my first show with Danny, and it was probably just a club gig, if I remember right. He actually hired me to do, I think it was 6 or 8 shows for him. It was a really busy time of year. I just moved to Phoenix. Nigel was up to his head in arena shows. And Danny asked me, can you help us out with this? And I'm like going, yeah, okay. Well, Danny will probably give a different story because he's a great storyteller. But that's how it all started. And here I am. What is it? How many years later?
almost
29.
But no, we did.
30, yeah.
But we did the show. We did Julian, and Gilmore was in '84.
Yeah, that's right.
I've got a picture. I got a picture right here.
Yeah, Emerson, Lake and Powell.
Emerson, Lake and Powell. That was State Fair.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember on that one, but I was in my office, and and you called me up and said, you have to come down here. Greg Lake doesn't want to play.
Oh, perfect. Yes, indeed.
Greg Lake was a nice guy and a super talent, but he loved to wind people up. And he was the singer, so he could do it. And I got down there right away to the State Fair, and he goes, we're not going to play tonight. And I go, then I guess we better pack up and go home. He goes, what? I didn't mean it. And I go, no, it's all right. You don't have to play. I said, you got a different beat for a drummer.
I
anyway.
absolutely do remember that. It's absolutely true.
That's
it's
crazy.
Amazing. But that talking about that tour would be a whole other, review of our world. But going back to what Nigel was saying, so we go back to 91, 92, and Nigel said Danny would book a show and then hand us a file. Now, what you've got to imagine back then is that cell phones,
Right.
we had pages. We didn't have text.
Well,
we didn't have the, we were just, that part of the world was starting to develop. But when that file was handed to Nigel and I, it was full of forms that we used to fill in by pencil. And we filled them in by pencil so we could go back and change the things as they altered. Yeah, erase them. Oh, yeah, we had erasers. How about that? We don't have those anymore.
No computers.
No computers.
No internet.
Right? So literally, Nigel and I would be talking to these people who, very like-minded people, thank God, but you would be literally hoping that they were understanding how you were relating the facilities to them so they didn't, like Nigel said, they want to know that you can do what you're telling them, but you can give them what the venue is supposed to be able to give them. In more recent times, we play these arenas and stadiums, and we're talking about 250-ton of equipment hanging up there, and half of it or more is hanging over the audience, which in itself is kind of like they just put that up there, and 15,000 people come in and go, ooh, and they have no idea that there's all that weight hanging over their heads. And the other part of the story is, of course, that there's a lot of people out there that really think all that sound and light just stays in the building and their next show comes in and uses it. When you tell them you're spending another 3 hours after they have left, or sometimes 4 hours, loading that show out, then they're like, really? Yeah, all that came in this morning off all those trucks and got put up, set up, and we have to take it back out again. So Nigel and my days would always be very, very long because we wouldn't leave till the last truck was packed up and the last roadie'd come out of the shower wiping his ass on our nice white towels. And,
Hey, by the way, speaking of long days, Mick, you have done something that not a lot of production managers and experts in your world have. You've made your life simpler. Can you talk about your living arrangement a little bit?
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful, especially as the world that we're living in right now.
Sure.
I was just looking it up, actually. It was in 2003. My good friend Nigel again. We've got a lot of things to be thankful for and in common. But Nigel told me one day, he said, Mick, you need to go buy an RV. Of course, Nigel had been RVing for a long time before me. And I looked around for a while. And finally, in I think it was like about March of 2003, right where Nigel lives out in Fountain Hills, there's an RV sales that Nigel recommended to me. I walked out there after looking at probably at least 70 different RVs. I stepped into this one. I fell off the screen.
You're good.
I stepped into this one, sat down on the couch and said, oh, my God, I could live in this thing. Bought it, and away we go. And then, as by chance you asked the question, I've just been trying to think what happened then, because in April of that year, I moved out of my apartment on Camelback and literally moved into the RV, but I also bought a house with friends down in Tempe. And we bought this particular house because it's a huge driveway where I could park the RV. So it was all very, it all kind of overlapped and folded. So I was trying to remember when we actually bought the house, and I started looking through old photos and emails and starting to realize just how much traveling I'd done in 2003 and 4 and 5 around Utah and Nevada, everywhere, But the big one was doing shows with my RV. I would literally go down to the show, park it, and use it as a production office. It was actually nicknamed the promoter home for a long time. and my adopted daughter actually made passes for it, and you had to have a pass to come on board the promoter home. But very often, I would just leave outside the gig and sleep there, hoping they pull the plug on me during the night. You know, obviously Arizona, pretty warm. You got to have electricity to run the air conditioning. So I'm now in my third incarnation of an RV, and so thankful because we're going through this COVID. I spent last summer in Montana on a outside my friend's house, plugged in through the wall. Spent a wonderful time right by Whitefish Lake, and then come October, I just all the way down to Phoenix, and here I am in Apache Junction enjoying the sunshine. Quick around so you can see the view.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It really is. So, yeah, what a remarkable, opportune thing that happened, and it's just evolved. And of course, the great thing now is I'm able to go and travel and stay at home at the same time. So
it's pretty. It's
the perfect
awesome.
COVID world. Yeah.
So
anyway, yeah.
You guys, again, as it pertains to shows in Phoenix, you guys are you know, the kings of the mountain, for lack of a better term. Danny, when it comes to promoting in the Southwest, you know, a lot of people know Bill Graham, you know, of the Southwest. I want to ask, and I'm really curious because you guys were talking about it earlier, and we'll start with Nigel. Prior to becoming the guru of production here in Phoenix, you guys were on tour with bands. So let's talk about who you're on tour with. Like, what was that like?
Well, life for me started in 1973 with Mark Bolan and T-Rex.
Okay.
How about that?
Wow. Perfect.
Yeah. And then after that, it was John Heisman's Coliseum with Gary Moore on guitar, the great Gary Moore.
Oh, yeah.
Don Airey, who went on with Ozzy Osbourne.
Deep Purple.
Right. John Heisman, of course, one of the greatest English drummers to have ever played drums.
Yeah.
To watch a drummer play a 7/5 beat in jazz, it blows your mind. I mean, it's just, how can he do that? It's unbelievable. And then after that, after Coliseum, that was 75, 76. Then Wishbone Ash, the Drifters, the Moments and Whatnots, the Shy Lights, and then my heavy metal period started. And I through a contact, Judas Priest were looking for a monitor engineer. So I went to rehearsals in Birmingham and met the guys, and they go, oh, yeah, okay. They were in the early throes of success, and this was 77, 78.
Unbelievable.
And I became a monitor engineer for 2 days. Now, I'd always been a front-of-house engineer, and the front-of-house engineer mysteriously just said, I'm done. I'm going to go work at Costco or something. So I moved to front-of-house engineer for Judas Priest. And
now,
then we
explain the difference between monitors and front of house for our audience.
Yeah, please.
Monitor engineer is you're actually mixing the sound for the artists on stage, versus front of house engineer, you're mixing the sound that the people want to hear. They want to hear it like at the record. For the artists on stage, like the drummer, all he wants to hear is kick, snare, and hat, generally most of the time, and maybe a little bit of bass guitar. He doesn't want to hear anything else. And the singer just wants to hear himself and maybe a guitar. So my job was to put that sound through. In those days, they didn't have an ear system. It was monitors. Get it as loud as you can, and when the ears were bleeding, you were successful. It really was. And then we went through Europe, opening for AC/DC on Priest released an album, British Steel, monster record, absolutely monster, and we opened for AC/DC through Europe, and it was Bon Scott's last tour, and we came back, and the last show we did was at the Hammersmith Odeon in London, AC/DC and Judas Priest. And at the end of the show, and it was the end of the tour, big party. And at the end of the show, at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, Bon Scott walked out of the theater. He was so drunk, and he fell over and died on his own vomit. He choked to death. And we'd all kind of gone back to where we were going. And the next day we heard that Bon had died on his own vomit, basically.
That is insane. So you were there the night that happened?
Apparently, I don't remember too much of it after we came off, because that was the end of the tour for us.
There's a lot we don't remember.
it was party central. But
I wanted to jump in there, Nigel, because you and I keep tripping over each other in history. Judas Priest was the first national act I ever worked with. Of course, I'm from Birmingham.
All right.
And became friends with Glenn Tipton and the boys. Rob Alford, who I still adore, a wonderful, wonderful man.
Oh yeah.
And you're just saying that you toured with him. You toured with them right after I only did a couple of years with them. But phenomenal act. But I worked with Judas Priest and Nigel will appreciate this, and maybe other people understand PA. We had 4 W bass pins, 2 90-degree horns, one either side, a 1,000-watt crown amplifier, half of it running the highs and half running the lows, because the band just screeched anyway. Glenn and KK Dan just powered out those guitars off the back line. We were doing town halls and stuff like that, so we weren't in arenas. And Rob Alford, boys, what's up there? So there was no mid-range. It was all kick and pump, snare drum, kick drum, and Rob Alford up there and the guitar. They actually created the foundation, I think you'll agree, Nigel, of mixing sound, because you got to have that bass, and you've got to have that bass and kick drum at the bottom, and you got to have all of this great vocal over the top. And right in the middle is all this great guitar sound, left and right and going on. Anyway, back to you, Nigel. Sorry, because I just think it's amazing how we crossed over so many times.
And Mick, by the way, next time Nigel names the band that you work with as well, just jump in.
AC/DC, I did 5 tours with them.
Oh, no kidding!
Back in England, I toured with them doing lighting in England and Europe and stuff like that. So again, I worked with Bon Scott before Nigel was around for that to happen. So I knew Bon really well, the same. And then my last tour with them was Fly on the Wall here in America as a production manager for the tour. So, so a little bit of history in there.
A lot of history.
All to the benefit of Danny, of course, because this amazing stories you're hearing, it really does. And it really does for Nigel. It sets us aside from a lot of other production people out there. Yeah. Nigel's reputation in the business is huge. It's bigger than his underwear, I'll tell you that.
Well, after Priest, I toured with Billy Squier for 2 years. Yes. When he was he had that monster record that just launched him into the stratosphere, and that's when Bon Jovi opened, when he had Slippery When Wet. That was a heck of a tour. And then the tour was finishing. We did 3 nights at Madison Square Gardens. And Eddie Van Halen was in Billy's dressing room, and Eddie said, "Can I come out and watch the show from the soundboard?" I said, "Sure, come on." So we went out, and he watched the show, and he loved it. He thought, "Oh my God, that was great!" And he knew it was the last day of the tour, because a lot of tours finish in major A markets, LA or Chicago or New York.
Sure.
And he goes, we're going into rehearsals in a month, and we're looking for a front of house engineer. I thought that was great what I just heard. Can you come and meet the guys? I want you to mix our next tour, which was the 1984 tour.
Are you serious?
So I said, yeah, I'll come out. So they flew me out to, I actually flew back to England because I was still living in England. And I got back home in England, and literally the next day the phone went, Eddie's on the phone because we swapped numbers. And he goes, hey, come out to LA. I want you to meet the guys. So I went and jumped on a plane. I flew out to LA, and it was surreal because Van Halen's an American band. Van Halen were not very big in England. Their music wasn't played in England. It was more Aussie, Judas Priest, AC/DC, more of a hard edge. And Van Halen were more of a little bit more poppy. So I really didn't know much about them. And I flew out there and met the guys, and then realized what I was getting myself into. I walked into their office in Hollywood, and it was just, oh my God, look at all these records. And they said, okay, here's what's going to happen. We're going into Zotro Studios in November for a couple of months rehearsing, and then we're going out. And I'm thinking, well, they'll probably be doing theaters or something. Then I saw the itinerary. It was a 9-month run, and it was like 3 or 4 nights in every arena along the way. I went, wow, how big are these guys?
That's
so
amazing.
It was great. I mean, it was phenomenal. We finished the end of the year in 1984, Monsters of Rock, and it was Van Halen closed. They were the headliner. There was AC/DC, Scorpions, Iron Maiden, Def Leppard, you name it. Anybody that picked up a guitar and had a number 10 record in the charts, they were on that Monsters of Rock. And it was the first one we played was in Lucerne in Switzerland. I think Lucerne's in Switzerland, right? Yeah, that's where we played, an open field, and there was 100,000 people there, and that's the most I'd ever played to. And it was just when the band hit the stage, and Eddie's first guitar lick was just roaring through as much PA as you've ever seen in your life, and this place just lit up. And for the next hour and a half, Roth just had 100,000 people in the palm of his hand. Back then, he was the greatest front man, in my opinion, that ever walked the face of the earth. He was just insane. And that the last show we did was in a stadium in Stockholm in September or whenever it was. And we knew right then and there that was the end of Van Halen. Roth flew back to America on his own plane, and the rest of us all flew commercial. And Eddie said, "We'll never see him again." So that was that. So everything at that point of time disbanded. The band, the crew, and everybody. And for me, I got back home. I got another phone call. Do you remember Rat?
Of course.
Yeah.
They were just launching into the stratosphere with that record. And I can't remember what it was.
Round and Round.
Round and Round.
Round and Round. That was the single. And I was with Rat for 2 years, and they were monstrous. I mean, they were huge. And then after that, I'd kind of had enough. I got hearing problems. I really had, because it was 10 years of blazing guitar solos and as loud as you could get it, but as clean as you could get it. So I thought it's time for a change. And I actually fell into being Patti LaBelle's tour manager and accountant. How about that for a change of scenery?
You could not have done a bigger 180. And
then after that, I promised my wife when our first child came along that I'd quit the road. And that's when I heard Danny was looking for somebody. Danny was cleaning house. And I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. We vaguely know each other. We've passed in the dressing room corridor on all the shows coming through Phoenix. And I went and met Danny, and here we are 30 years later. I worked for him till the whole Live Nation thing and the split and everything else. So otherwise I'd still be working for Danny.
Well, and again, your kinship is obvious, and the love that the three of you have for one another is great. You guys have been through the trenches for sure. Mick, take us through some more of your tours.
So, my life has been pretty scattered in the sense of sticking with one thing and staying with it, except working for Danny for 30 years. My introduction, real quickly, my introduction into the business is I had a small trucking company in England. I'd say small, it had one truck. I got hired by a friend of a friend to take their equipment down to the Pop Bath Festival, a free festival. This was in 1970 something, and it didn't go well. The guy set up all the gear. In those days, you had to take your PA with you. That's how small it all was. It all fit into an Econoline-sized van, plus 4 band members with me. And we went down there. The PA blew up. The band didn't get to play. We put it all under a big plastic sheet. Guys went off smoking joints. I smoked a joint and fell asleep on top of the stack. We created an amazing friendship just in one day or 2 days of traveling. And I ended up working with the band for a couple of years. And they were nobody. They were called Zipper when they started out. They went through a couple of changes over the next 2 years. They started to do the glam rock thing. They went from a rock band to a glam rock band, and then the Sex Pistols and the Clash came onto the circuit, and oh my God, then they went to do punk, and they got trashed a little bit in the press, but they did make one great album that I still have, and I still think they're a great band. Anyway, so that's how that started off, and then the band reached a point when I felt like they were going to fall apart, and sure enough that they did. I left them and went to work with a company called Light and Sound Design, which is LSD, with the obvious. That was owned by Terry Lee and Mick Jackson back in the early days. I was a friend. We were all friends. We've all lived together. We lived in apartments in England together, in Birmingham. But I was much more of a grunt than the intelligent. So anyway, so they started doing tours. I toured with the Sex Pistols. I toured with the Clash. Very, very short tours because they all got banned, as you will remember.
Yep.
The Sex Pistols in particular, there was a guy started a company called Endale Associates, which he pulled out of his ass. And he called me up and said, Mick, I need somebody like you to help me make this work. I said, okay. I said, well, what artists have you got? He said, I've got the Sex Pistols. And I'm like, it's just jaw drop. You know, what do you mean you have the Sex Pistols? I've just booked 8 shows with them. I got to have somebody that knows what it was the Danny Zalisco, but unfortunately not as smart as Danny was. I might still be there. So, okay, so we do 4 shows, and then there was a riot at the show in Wolverhampton. Sex Pistols got banned by everybody, kicked off the label, boom, gone. From there, we moved on, and we did, as I said, we did like 4 AC/DC tours around England and Europe. And I was a lighting grunt. I used to put up lighting systems and make them work, and I designed a whole lot of stuff for the guys as we want to cook. That's what we do as production people.
Were you the guy, Mick, when I went to the shows and I see the guys climbing the ladder for the lighting stuff? Did you do any of that stuff?
I tried not to climb ladders. I did several times, and I did fall a couple of times. Oh, yeah, I used to go up in the trusses. I couldn't do it now, but back in the day, that was over those next 2 or 3 years. That's when I ended up working with Judas Priest, again, through the friends. Ozzy Osbourne, the guys with Sabbath, they were friends of my friends. They used to go to the farmhouse out east of Birmingham. We used to drink in the bar together. I wasn't, who are these people? It doesn't matter. And all these years later, I'm rubbing shoulders with Ozzy Osbourne, who doesn't remember anybody anyway, but he doesn't remember that, you know, hey, you want another beer? And of course, the only reason I can speak about it clearly is because I stopped drinking a long time before he did. Well, he hasn't stopped drinking, come to think of it. So we toured with Judas Priest. We did We did a lot of shows around England, all in a very large Mercedes van, all the equipment in the back. We used to sleep on top of the equipment driving to the next gig. Totally insane, because if ever they'd have rolled that, you'd be dead.
Absolutely, right? Yeah.
But this was, like I said, this was the days when we started up in the music business. There wasn't a music business. It was just being created out of the likes of Nigel and I and people like us that were picking up the pieces and making it work and gluing it. So the big turn in my life really came in the year of, 77. I was with Light and Sound Design in Birmingham, got a call from Graham Fleming in London. He ran Britannia Row lighting for Pink Floyd. Calls up, needed somebody to take a couple of scissor lifts for a drum riser to Italy. I'm doing nothing. Free holiday, a few $100. Here's the Volkswagen van, go. It was a great hippie story, and I was like, of course I'll do it, whatever. So I drove over to Italy, got to the where they were putting the show together. I'm trying to remember the guy that was actually running. Anyway, he had to leave to go do Frank Sinatra at the pyramids in Egypt, and there was nobody out there. That. Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah.
What was his name? It'll come back to me. Wonderful guy. Anyway, he left. There was nobody there to take over the rig. Nobody knew how to put it up, and it was in terrible condition. So what did I do? I jumped in there, took it all apart, put it all back together with the crew, and up we went on tour. The artist was Angelo Branduardi. He was a very famous. He was the Elvis Presley, if you will, of Italy. He was a folky rock star. The one fine thing I remember about the tour was it was every one of the shows was at a race course, and they were all what do you call it? Red festivals, communist festivals. Oh, and then I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, what is this? You know, the red flag flying and all that stuff, you know. So anyway, we survived it. I can't resist telling the story, which Nigel will appreciate. We got to this one racetrack and we pulled up in the trucks that we had. The stage was built, except it was only half built. It was supposed to be a 60-foot stage and it was 30-foot with a 20-foot wing on it. And he's Italian. I said, no problem. What's the problem? And he pulls out his drawing of the stage that we'd sent him, and it was folded over. I kid you not. He hadn't folded it over. They fortunately had enough equipment there, so the rest of the day was spent building another half a stage and another wing so we could get a show on. He said, no problem. Everybody disappeared and has a break for 4 hours. He said, no problem. We're having a big show. So the result of that was that when they put the other half of the stage up, they didn't put the plywood sheets under the legs of the steel. So during the show, the stage is dropping. The scissor lifts that I brought over is going like this. And the 8 Egyptian musicians playing their little, they're all sliding up the riser in a cloud of fog.
Why am I walking uphill?
And then, of course, then the roof was actually made in Italy, and it was I-beam. They'd built 4 frames, put 4 I-beams up, and then this I-beam roof. And, of course, the roof had done this. So now the roof wouldn't come down because the steel was just biting into itself. You were asking where our experience comes from. So we literally ropes up onto the steel grid, taking the lamps off by the bar and lowering them down, put them in the truck, and just leaving them with the roof. And up we went. Anyway, lots of different tours came out of working with Britannia Row. And one day, 1979, and I've been very fortunate to have some great opportunities to do some wonderful things, no less so than meeting Danny when I did in Phoenix, being where I am today. But I walked back to Britannia Row's offices. I was doing Graham Parker and the Rumor, which is another whole story. But I get back, I got a bag of dirty laundry. It's March 27th. I had on my way back to going back to the building, gone to the American Embassy and got a H1 visa or whatever it was back in those days, because they thought They might need somebody to go to America at some point. I got back into the driveway, Graham Fleming standing there looking at me, and he goes, Mick, I got a problem. Paul Devine, who was the lighting designer for April Wine, which was a pretty big rock band in his time, he doesn't want to leave his band. He wants to stay with them. We've got tours going out in Canada. The equipment's there. We have no company and nobody to do it. Would you be interested? Yeah, you know, and I'm literally like this. Oh, yeah, okay. And I'm thinking, well, you're going to call me up in a couple of weeks and tell me what you want me to do. And he leans forward with this envelope in his hand like this. And he goes, there's your air ticket. You got 2 hours to get to the airport, Heathrow Airport. Your flight booked and you're on your way. They just knew I wouldn't turn it down, I suppose. Huge roll of mochi all over my shoulder and a bag of dirty laundry, and off I go to the airport. And I flew into Montreal, Canada, and I started working alongside the Audio Analyst. It was a huge audio company, right, Nigel?
Yeah.
Audio Analyst.
I used him for Priest and Van Halen.
So wonderful people, had a wonderful time in Canada, toured with Christa Berg, a whole slew of names back and forth. But after this first year in '79, I get a call from Graham. I need you to bring equipment down with you from Canada down to New York, Birmingham by here. What I know about freeways and ride trucks, right? So up we go, and I'm driving this stuff down. I actually stopped in Buffalo on the way down. Michael Schenker's band in a theater. And, of course, all my friends that worked with AC/DC were there doing the show. So I pulled in to see them. And, again, at the time, what does it all mean? But it's like when you look back at the history, right? I go down to New York, park the trucks, God only knows where. They put me in a hotel somewhere in the middle of Manhattan. I'm sitting watching television thinking to myself, wow, I'm in America. And I'm watching, what's his name, Kojak on television. And I hear this gunfire, bang, 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 bang. It wasn't on the television. It was outside in the street. I'm like, holy Jesus, I'm in America. Yeah,
welcome to New York.
So there we were. So I'm back in, and the reason they brought me down is Pink Floyd have decided to do the Wall tour. So from there, they had Brit Row Studios, which was actually an old church out in Long Island. We put all the stuff together that we had. Graham Fleming brought over the entire workshop from England. It was horrible. I mean, there was a nut and bolt left in England when he finished. It all came over in containers. We didn't use trucks. We used containers. So from there, we went up to Seattle. We built a whole bunch of the platforms that rose up and down to build the wall. There was 5 of those. Oh, I didn't actually build them, but we were there to help design and whatever.
Sure.
And then back to LA to Culver City Studios, where we were for a month, putting this extravaganza together. Now, I've had some experience in my life, but this thing was just bizarre. Roger Waters' comments on the show to, sorry, I'm trying to think of everybody's name at this point, but he just said, I want everything we've ever done in the Wall show. So there was all this equipment and lifts and all sorts of stuff that had been put in mothballs years ago, huge mirror balls that were just absurd. There's this mirror ball with these leaves on it that opened up, and there was a huge mirror ball in the middle of it. When it lit up, it was just... So we were in Culver City, we were building this show, and the wall, the main wall across the stage was, in rehearsals, was about 65 feet. And it was about 40 feet high, and there were these fold-out cardboard bricks that slotted in on the next one. And then there were frames that left the wall open in places. Hey, little doggy. Big doggy. My favorite story of that one is I'd watched the wall come down, and it was fascinating because they had these towers that went up inside with hammers on them. And as they come down, the hammers had knocked the bricks over. I thought, oh, that's so cool. And it was just like the center of the wall came out, right? So I went up on stage for the next fall with my camera like this, but they changed the pattern of it coming down. The whole top tier of the wall's coming down. I'm like this, and all of a sudden I'm looking up, and there's a 32-pound cardboard brick falling on top of me.
Oh my God.
Camera.
Did you get hit by the brick?
I got hit by the brick. Fortunately, managed to fall into some metal that was on a frame that was on the stage. Camera hit the deck. I still have a very blurred photo from that in my collection. Anyway, so we put the wall together, and in 1981 we did the first shows at the Sports Arena in LA. Spent 3 weeks in the Sports Arena. We loaded the show in 3 times because Graham Fleming was very concerned it wouldn't fit, and it didn't fit. But that was beside the point. We managed to make it work, and then we took it to NASA Coliseum in New York. Again, it all went over in containers. There were no semis. It was just containers. Fill them up. We had container workshops that were just full of all the nuts and bolts you could ever think of. Take it over to New York, we did that, and then that was the end of that. Let's see, that would have been March. That's where I met my wife to be for the next 5 years, and the mother of my son. And after that, all that went away. Went back to England, did a couple of things from over there, got sent back to New York, and ran Britannia Row and did some amazing. We had, oh God, so many great people. Talking Heads, Danny, brain dead. What's his name? Singer, Talking Heads.
Oh, David Byrne?
David Byrne. They would come into the studios and rehearse. We'd be up in the office, and David would be down there with his band rehearsing the next tour. There were just so many to remember. So all this was going on, and we'd be pumping out these little tours. I did the first U2 tour. No, I didn't actually go on the tour, but we put the tour together to go up and do some colleges up the East Coast of America. That was a treat. I actually went out to a couple of shows. Anyway, there's a lot of this going on. Bum, bum, bum. Then David Gilmour calls me up one day and he goes, Mick, he said, you're fired. And I go, okay. You know, because in my life, whatever. But what had happened is they had the whole crew that worked for Pink Floyd were running these shows for them while they weren't doing any Pink Floyd work. And they were paying them. But it all got a little out of hand, you know. There was way too many drugs and all sorts of things. So David and Roger, by this time, of course, during the Wall tour, were breaking up. They'd had enough. They didn't want to work together anymore. And they'd got to a point where they said, oh, we're going to have to shut this down at some point. Mick, you're rehired. We want you to run Britannia Row and do whatever for the next, whatever it will be. Will you do that? Okay, good. And off everybody went. And I got left holding this old building. And, you know, doing all these little tours and stuff. Did Reggae Sunsplash in Jamaica, Montego Bay. Fucking what a trip.
I don't think you can say that, Mick.
What's that? Ordinary trip.
I don't think you say the F word, buddy.
Oh, you can't? Oh, okay. You can believe it.
We're not on a real radio.
It wasn't a real F word. It was just a pretend one.
Flipping.
All right. So before we go to before we go to Mo Bay, I'm going to ask you guys, both Nigel and Mick. So Mick first. Give me like the best part about working with Pink Floyd.
The fact that in when I was 20 years old, a friend of mine took me to a Pink Floyd concert at Birmingham Town Hall. They did Atom Heart Mother, which was an amazing, I still think one of the greatest albums they ever did. Not the greatest recording, but it really was an amazing set of music. And I remember, this is before I was in the business, and I remember sitting there thinking, God, if ever I worked in the music business, that's what I want to do, production. Look at that. The lights were just awesome. The sound, everything about them. I still get goosebumps thinking about that one show. And then in March of 81, I'm under the stage. I get an electric shock for one of the transformers that were completely left wide open. There was no covering on them. And as I did, I came up and banged my head on the stage, and it was the epiphany. oh my God, I'm working for Pink Floyd.
The dream you had at 20.
The dream I had was now a reality. Even though my head was a little sore, it was like, wow, that was it. That was my moment in life. That was the greatest production I'd ever worked on. Done some amazing shit, but really, that was it. You can't go any better than that. And having a drink with David Gilmour in the bar.
Well, I was telling Danny that I've seen a lot of shows in my time as well. Hundreds and hundreds of shows, maybe thousands. And the best show I've ever seen was the last time Danny brought Roger Waters in to Glendale. That I just blown away, speechless. So I feel you viscerally.
Well, that wall tour was a replica of what we did all these years ago in 1981. So 1981.
You'll all be happy to know that while we're doing this, Roger called on my cell phone. And I had to go, piss off. I'll call you when we're done.
Oh my God, Daddy, it's perfect.
Please send him our best. So Nigel, I mean, Van Halen, AC/DC, I mean, Billy Squier, just like couple of highlights from those times, memories that stick out there. Like, I can't believe I saw that or did that.
I think probably when it was happening, you don't realize what you're involved with, the size.
Yep.
Because you're in such a cocoon.
Yeah, but Nige, back then, as you were starting that, Van Halen then wasn't the iconic Van Halen that they are now. They were becoming that. They were setting the steps and the stage for becoming like this huge band in history. But in 1984, they were a relatively new band. They were a big arena band and everything, but it had really just started a couple of years before that.
Right. But at the end of the tour, and you sat back outside of the bubble and you kind of looked in, you realized what a monster that band was. I mean, you had everything you could possibly want in the 80s for a rock band. You had a good-looking singer, the long flowing hair, who was just a front man for every girl's dream. Let's face it, and every guy too, probably. And then you had Eddie, who was just a monster on the guitar. You had Michael, who's probably one of the most down-to-earth pop stars you've ever met in your life. The nicest guy. And actually, talking about Michael, he had an endorsement with I can't remember. A hard liquor company, and I can't remember.
Daniels. He had the Jack Daniels. Yeah.
So he had a guitar made like a Jack Daniels bottle. And I think we were in Montreal, and it got delivered, and he was just, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in all my life. So his guitar tech strung it, tuned it, showtime. Lights go down, Michael comes on, Dave comes on, the whole thing gets going. And at the end of the first song, I hear Michael at the top of his voice go, "You motherfucker." Somebody very close to the front had flipped a quarter, and it had hit his guitar and took a chunk out of the guitar.
Oh,
he was absolutely beyond livid, because he thought this was the greatest thing that ever happened to him. So at the end of the show, he was just ranting and raving.
Well, that bass is probably not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but it may be at some point. And if you get out to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and you see it and you see the chunk, Nigel just told you the story of how it happened. Now you know.
Exactly.
You know, one of the greatest things I'd like to do, and I'd like to do this with Mickey too, is when the time comes and we're probably too old to come home at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning from doing shows.
I'll see you tomorrow, Nigel.
Is actually go round to high schools or colleges, because nobody can go into a high school and explain to students what the music business is about.
Yeah.
It needs somebody to have grown up in it and to go back on a weekly basis and tell these stories and how you can get in the business. And there's so many different facets of this business. And I think that
we can bill ourselves as the three frickin' Stooges.
we could do Mr. Norfolk and Mr. Good. That's Mr. Norfolk and I'm Mr. Good. We can go out and call ourselves Norfolk and Good. But I think it's something the kids would really digest. I think they'd really enjoy it.
No, what you guys have been witness to history. You have made history. You've created history.
You know, we without we really have. I mean, we were on the front line all the way through. And while it was happening, you don't realize while it was happening. Now you look back on it and go, you know what? We were top of the tree while that was all happening.
Like they used to say in Babe, not bad, pig. Well done.
Thanks, poodle lips.
Just to add to that, I was on a conference call on one of these sites that have grown up now, and they were asking the question: are we ever going to see another Beatles, Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd? Yes. And there was a lot of very young people on there all going, yes, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And I got sad news for them because all of that happened in an era of something that grew like a plant out of a pot. And eventually that plant is going to die. There's going to be something to replace it. But we used to, if you lived in England, you listened to the BBC. I mean, there's a whole history of not having enough entertainment as we grew up. And, radio was so bad in England, we had pirate ships on the coast called Radio Carolina, Radio London, and we tuned into them. And they played the great Luxembourg. They played the greatest music. Yeah. It's not that. Right now, if I could live to be 500 years old, I couldn't listen to every piece of music that lives on this planet.
No, you couldn't.
It's hard to even turn on music now and pick something that you want to hear. It usually goes back to something we grew up with rather than something that's new out
there. Hey, Mick. How did you like the halftime show at the Super Bowl?
You know, I didn't watch it.
Figures.
I'm not a Super Bowl fan. And I'm usually watching it. But this year
I was very disappointed.
I heard it was terrible.
Well,
by the way, that's so interesting because I give it a solid A-.
Well, I thought it was a piece of shit myself. Now, number one, let's be clear. I like The Weeknd a lot. I think he's fantastic, but I think he went outside of his orbit. He should have just come on and sang his songs for real and not been on tape. And these guys with the jock straps doing the fake Michael Jackson dance. I'm sorry. I didn't buy a second of it. I mean, what an unfootball thing to do. I mean, on another occasion, like if they did that at the MTV Awards, amazing. Because that's where that belongs. That doesn't belong on a Super Bowl show. Where's AC/DC?
Right.
Yeah.
Where's the Rolling Stones? Where's something for everybody that's bigger than life? This was an art statement, that was born out of a rich guy's pocket.
No, I definitely get that point. Nigel, what was your you didn't like it? What about it?
I think the biggest thing was he had an end stage in a stadium that if you were at the game, you probably thought it was the greatest thing because you had the end stage, you could feel it. It didn't come across on TV at all. When he was running through all the mirrors and stuff, I was starting to get nauseous just watching that.
Well, keep in mind when they booked that, there wasn't going to be anybody in the stadium, and as it was, there was. I mean, it looked. They did a very good job of dressing the house with those fake cardboard people, but there was such a smaller amount of people in the stadium. I don't think that was taken into account when he was building that event. The show that he created.
I think if they'd have done a traditional in the round thing like they normally do on the field and spread out with more lighting, and the lighting has more effect when it's deep, when you see it on the edges of the stadium. And this just didn't, for me, it didn't come across. And I had 7 or 8 people watching it with me, and they all said the same thing. It doesn't translate properly.
Were they professional?
Wouldn't have nothing to do with the fact that wouldn't have anything to do with the fact that we're all old and we're used to watching 4 or 5 geezers bouncing around on stages, right? You know?
No, actually, my niece, who's 8 years old, an avid hardcore Kiss fan, and she said, "Have you ever done a Kiss show or toured with Kiss?" And I said, "Well, I've never toured with Kiss, but I've probably done 15, 20 Kiss shows." And she had the Kiss T-shirt on, and the Kiss backpack, and I go, "I can't believe you're a Kiss fan. She's the greatest band in the world. Have you ever heard them?" Wow.
By the way, when we were growing up, gentlemen, that wouldn't have happened with the generation before us and their music, right? Like maybe Elvis, maybe some of that, but like, what happens now with classic rock, whether it's an AC/DC or a Journey or Kiss, the young people are loving that music. And it's really a statement about the timelessness of it,
Yeah,
it really is.
It really is.
I want to ask. Go ahead, Mick. Sorry.
I was going to say, but they'll never appreciate it in the way that we did as it evolved over the years. Yeah. I mean, people see Ozzy on stage now. "Oh, Lauren, I can't find my feet, Sharon." we know it's in our blood, but to the kids out in the audience, it's like, what? Oh, did I miss that? What?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we've fortunately just been through so much, and what a journey! Yeah. And speaking of which, what a great band Journey is. God, I still love seeing those guys.
Yeah, me too. I love Journey.
Yeah. Oh my God, Chicago! Come on, just one more time. I can do it.
Right?
They're coming. Don't worry.
And I might add that one of the great things about working with Danny in this era is Danny continues to book these incredible legends in rock venues, and the Willie Nelsons. And I got to tell you, when Willie Nelson plays, I just melt. He's up there and he can barely play and sing anymore, but it doesn't matter. "Help me make it through that plunk, 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 plunk." And it doesn't matter. It really is.
I should like to interject here and say, for anybody who's listening to us blather on about all these old memories and fun things, I'm sure they're enjoying it, but they don't know how important both of you guys are and have been to me, because I would have never. Can you imagine in like a whole bunch of people, strangers thrown together to do this? And at the time where I met you guys, to the point that you came to work here, I was coming from second gear into third and getting ready to bang into fourth in my career. At the end of the 80s, I mean, Evening Star had taken over this area completely, and I'm trying to think of how, because I don't remember us being as streamlined as we became once you guys got on board. And it wasn't a moment too soon, because we went from doing 250 shows to 400 shows a year in that time period there, where it was an amazing thing, because I never even looked at a calendar when I booked shows. I just booked the shows. If they were good shows, I booked them, and I wasn't looking at how they overlapped with our schedules.
Yeah, Nigel and I want to talk to you about that.
We owe me $40,000 for Tylenol.
You can't get there from here overnight.
At any given time, we could have 5 shows. I remember 8 shows in one night.
Yes, absolutely.
And in 5 different cities.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember how we got around that, but we did somehow. It was a magic show. I mean, there were literally 40 and 50 shows a month.
I think you've sent Tim Monad in production on a couple of shows.
Oh, I'm sure I did. And he's never been the same.
Yeah, no, indeed. But you know, Danny, I just thrown it back at you, though. I mean, you're the center of this thing. You know, I worship, hero you in what you've done in the business. I just wish I had the talent to understand the talent that you do. You know, this is not just working in Phoenix, with Albuquerque, Tucson. The amount of drive to Tucson with Danny pulling out his radio tapes. Mick, listen to this one. You remember the King Crimson? You remember when they did that? He knew more about the people I'd worked with and the bands back in England than I did. He said, "You work with them, right?" No, Danny, I never worked with them. How about this guy? No, Danny, and he built me into another 1,000 tours that I never did. But anyway, so you know, it was this amazing ability to understand the music business, and you worked with Doc McGee, Bon Jovi. Oh my God.
Boy, oh boy!
You guys have.
I love name dropping. Danny Zalisco and Doc McGee. That was a scary thing to happen at any time
to anybody.
So tell us a Doc story.
Oh God! Oh dear! Oh dear! Oh dear!
Well, we should let that one to Danny. I think
we probably should actually. Yes, because Danny's got a lot of stories.
Otherwise, we'll be.
I'll clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, there you go.
We were at the Coliseum, '87, and Motley had opened their tour in June. In the summer, and no opening act, and then we ended up getting like Keel or somebody, a local band. So Doc came in. I'm trying to remember if it was that one, and then they came back in October with Whitesnake for 2 shows. We sold 3 Motley shows out between June and 2 in October. I think it was at the warm-ups where they rehearsed the show at the Coliseum for like a week. And Doc had a Rolls-Royce convertible that he was driving. He had rented, and he was driving around town. And at the end of the night, they were staying over. We were supposed to go out after the show. Doc goes, "Sorry, Danny, bad news. We got a private plane. We're flying out of here right after the show." And he flipped me the keys to the Rolls, and he goes, "It's due back next month."
Oh, that's awesome.
So
that'll be Doc. Yep. Great impersonation too.
I was driving. I was asking people if I could pick them up. You know what I mean? I was like ready to go anywhere. That was a clean Doc story. There is one. Holy cow! What was it? Oh God, I can't talk about any of that. We used to stay up real late after shows. I mean, we're the kind of guys like,
yes, just a bit.
I would say Barnum and Bailey kind of guys, to be honest. Modern day Barnum and Bailey's.
Yep.
I mean, we get off on the biggest events, fiascos, presentations. I mean, the bigger, the better, the brighter, the greater, you know, and it takes a lot of great people to pull those things off. But Doc had a way about just being a step above most other managers in the way that he worked with his bands. And he was like the 5th member of Motley and the 6th member of Bon Jovi. When he had those two moving forward, I mean, that was one of the most incredible freight trains in the history of rock music right there. I don't think there was ever a bigger, greater stretch of success for one manager than there was when those guys had it going on. I mean, think about it. In the day where T-shirts were $20 instead of $40, $20, and they were still doing $15 to $20 a head on old shirt prices. Ridiculous. I mean, forget about what they made. They made more at the T-shirt stand than they made on the door.
Sure.
They always joked that we play shows so we can sell shirts.
Right?
And albums, because they sold a shitload of albums as well back then. We sold vinyl and they sold CDs and everything. It was before all this fucking computer crap took over and Napster screwed up the whole world. You know, but that's another story we'll get into another time. But anyway, go on.
No, I just wanted to say something that Nigel appreciates. I just want to tell you, we talk about all these very, very famous people that are in our lives. We're walking down the corridors, brushing shoulders with unbelievable people that have the power to kill us, let alone retire us, whatever. But of all the things that I can remember in the last 30 years, all the pressure we were always under doing shows, because we were responsible to that audience that left the building for everybody's safety and whatever. We were all responsible for it. But the pressure never left as much as it did when Danny left the building and drove home. Then we could all breathe again, because you never know when Danny was going to come around the corner and go, "Hey, Mick, we've decided to." Oh, no.
We've decided to get some dancing donkeys and little people. Can you make it happen in 30 minutes?
They're all coming over to my house to do a jam session. Can you bring the PA and the lights over, and we'll just, we'll just.
Well, there's that.
Seriously, you guys have been witness to history. So for the last segment here, I just want to talk about, like, Danny and I, when we're having the conversation about, thematically, obviously we want to talk about the music business. Obviously we want to talk about, the behind the scenes, all of that magic. So many people want to be doing what you guys do for a living. So be the mentor for this next section. And Nigel, we'll start with you. Like, what do I do if I'm, 20-year-old Mick today in 2021, and I want to go, hang out and tour with Roger Waters? What do I have to do to make that happen?
2 minutes, Rod. You got 2 minutes, Nige. Give me something with that kid who's got the attention span of a gnat.
Yeah.
2 minutes. Here's what you're going to do, brother.
Yeah, this is something that you don't go to school to learn. This is something that needs to be in your blood, and it's something you need to move in music circles, and you need to make friends with people that are in the music circles. And you never know which road you're taking. Sometimes you'll be walking down a path with half a dozen people, and you might take a left turn and never end up in the music business. But you could walk down that same path and turn to the right with two people, and those two people inadvertently launch you into the stratosphere through their contacts. So it's a lot of luck is involved, but a lot of persistence is involved if it's where you really want to go and end up. Because you can't go to college and go, I want to be a tour manager and a tour accountant. You can go and be an audio engineer, because there are schools for that. My son went to that. Now he owns a sound company and he's incredibly successful. But you've got to really want to do it, not just go to an audio school and learn how to run a mixing console, but not really understand and feel the music. It needs to be in your bones.
Yes. Yeah. There's an old saying that, by the way, in terms of who you're connected with, and you were saying that, go left and you're successful, go right and you're not. Your network is your net worth.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
you guys personify that. So Mick,
and you know what? Excuse me, jumping in, Tim.
No, please.
When both Mick and I, and even Danny, when we all started in this, and Mick mentioned this earlier, there's no such thing as cell phones, fax machines, or the electronics we have in this day and age. People rely on the electronics too much. Back when we were all starting to try and make a name in this business, it was, you've got to make the contacts with people. You got to pick up the phone and dial your buddy, or go round to his house, or go round to a club, and you got to mingle, and you got to make those contacts and stay in contact. These days, everybody sits in a chair and does it on the phone, and it's so impersonal. And a lot of times people just go, delete, 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 delete.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. By the way, I just heard on a news report that these things will actually make phone calls too.
Really?
Besides
you can actually
taking pictures.
Yeah, you can talk to other people. So
I can get rid of my rotary phone.
You can if you want. So Mick, again, inspire young Nigel who wants to be in the business, and when you have the music in your blood and in your bones, and I think I can speak for myself, but I think I can speak for the four of us to say that is just the case. And that is what has driven us so much throughout our careers. Mick, how does somebody get to be where you're at? What do you got to do?
Or talk them out of it. Talk them out of it.
Talk them out of it.
Don't do it. Don't
do it, whatever you do. I had a fortunate experience the last 3 years or 4 years ago. Ken Koziel from Phoenix there was doing a course at ASU, and he would have 50 students in his class, and he would invite like Danny or me or someone in our group to go and talk to the class. Yeah, you wouldn't do it. So I got to do about 7 of these things, and I am not a good speaker in front of people. That's not my forte. Mine's about being over there getting the job done. But I took it on, and I truthfully enjoyed it. And what I found was that out of 50 people in the room, there was only about 4 people I could see will actually ever get remotely close to the business. And you could see it in their faces, because while they were learning, they were there because mom and dad put some money up so they could go to a course and get a degree and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And the course was on corporate shows. They brought me in, for example, to talk about rock and roll. And one of the things that I used to say, which I thought was really, really, really important in this day and age, is learning to be. It's something that will come to you naturally if you've got it in your system. But by saying that, what I meant was when I walk into arena, just like Nigel does, just like Danny does, when you walk into arena, nobody comes up and asks you what you're doing there.
Right.
They come up and ask you, can we help you?
Right.
Because you have that thing. You're there. You belong there. That's what I mean by learning to be there. Now, amongst those students, I used to put a stack of business cards on the corner of the table and invite people, say, come out and do a concert with me. And usually out of every one of these, it was twice a year, you'd get 4 or maybe 5 of these girls. Oh, they were all girls, by the way. No guys. There was one term when there was one guy. So 4 or 5 of them would pick a show and they'd come out and hang out with me in an arena. And that was what I would tell them. You've got to know that when you walk in there, people are going to say, oh, she's okay. She's with Mick.
And he's been on the run ever since.
Nigel. So I can say that I know at least 3 of those girls over that period that actually went on to get really great jobs in the music business. They spent a day shadowing me as they went around doing what Mick does. And it's a really boring day because what I think is a great gig, they're just following me. But they get to listen to conversations. They get to brush shoulders with the biggest well-known people like Danny in the business. Now, Danny might even, he'll kind of brush him to one side a little bit, but you've been in an arena with Danny Zelisko. He's the promoter. He is the end product to all the things that you're thinking of. I can vouch for that.
Yep.
But as I said, in talking earlier, I've had several great opportunities in my life just come out of nowhere. And again, like walking in and meeting up with Danny one day. And why am I here? Because I had the balls to turn around to him and say, yeah, I can do that. I don't know whether you realize I didn't know. But I mean, it was like
let me get back to that part where you can breathe when I leave the arena. I never really knew that was the case.
Well, and by the way, Danny, that's just.
I always thought you could breathe better when I arrived.
Well, there was that moment, and then as the evening went on, it moved to the other moment when you left. And when I say that, Danny, I'm passing the greatest compliment in the world, because we had to deal with some ultimate asshole production managers and tour managers an artist that just drove us insane.
Sure.
But you were the man.
And you made me look good. Both of you guys, you guys both made me look good. It's funny, while we're sitting here talking, Terry Burke is writing me about Chick Corea passing.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Oh, mama. So sad.
Scientologists, no doctors.
Yes.
Really?
So,
unbelievable.
But on the other side of it, apparently he found out recently, and it was a rare kind of a cancer. I don't know that he could have done anything or not, but there were no doctors, from what I'm being told. And I don't know. It's too bad.
Yeah. All right, Danny, take us home. Words of wisdom from Danny Zelisko.
Well, today we've been blessed with the opportunity to have a chat with my two main guys. I mean, I don't know what else to call them. They're best friends, consummate professionals, and trusted allies. How's that?
That's beautiful.
If it wasn't for them, I probably still would have got here. It would have been a different road and nowhere near as much fun, and nowhere near as great. Because it's been a ride. I mean, it's a long story of what we're all doing currently, together or not together, whatever. But this spirit always lives in each of us, and we always look forward to the next time we get to see each other. Much less working together is seeing each other. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's doing, it's living, and that's what we all do together. I mean, unlike a lot of other people we know. I mean, whether they know it or not, we know it, and it's like I've never had a bad time with these guys. We've never done anything but positive, good, fun, family-like, work-like, whatever things, and I look forward to many more years.
Yep, I got you, Gov.
What people don't know is that every time you've gone to a show, especially here in Phoenix, over the course of the last nearly 30 years.
Call it 40.
Let's call it 40 years. That these three guys were the ones that made sure that the show happened and that you enjoyed it and that you had a great time and everything went off without a hitch. And when there were hitches, these were the guys that took care of the problems too, the fixers. On
another episode, if he'll do it, I want to see if Terry will join me for one of these, because I think he should. Terry, who works with me at Evening Star and is Live Nation now with Nigel, did as much or more, as anybody could possibly do in the growth of this business that we all enjoy together, that we still draw money from and a living from. Yeah. Hopefully sooner than later. Jesus Christ. Yeah. That's something else. But anyway, we should wrap this and we'll get on with some more.
Guys, we just scratched the surface here, honestly. Like, we have to do this again.
So Tim, come up with some more questions and let's what we should do. This is great, but why don't we do do more of like a flash question and answer kind of a thing.
Sure.
And you would be good at putting it together. Don't tell me the questions. Let's do one more chat that's a little more organized. And I think we could blend stuff from both of these things together and make a really, really nice little special out of it.
Yeah. And by the way, as Danny, I'm thinking about the arc of the podcast over time, guys, you'll have to come back again and again.
Oh, love to.
Want to continue to have these
great. And you know what we'll do? We'll get a couple of our favorite band production managers to jump in too. We'll have more than just us.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. Think of a couple guys we could get on this to beat up all together at once. It'd be great.
There's plenty out there, absolutely.
It'd be great.
I was just saying, I had my first COVID injection 2 days ago and walked away from it feeling really great, drove my RV, that's my car, got home feeling great, went to bed last night, got up yesterday morning, and they said you might feel like you've got some flu symptoms. I died for the day. Let me tell you, it's not a lot of you just.
Oh, really?
And I'm just sitting here, and the reason I mentioned that is I've just had such a wonderful time for the last hour and a half talking with you guys. The memories that are still floating through my head are kind of like, you know, I mean, it's just a great awakening to our history and, you know, what we do together. It's great.
Plenty more left. Not even scratch the surface.
That's what we get out of this. That's our purpose.
Yeah.
By the way, did you get the Moderna vaccine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going tomorrow to Phoenix Muni at 9:48 a.m.
You'll have the other one then. Let's hope they both work as well.
Well, I'm getting the first one tomorrow.
Oh no, Pfizer versus Moderna is really the debate.
I've got a 4:30 in the morning at the Cardinals Stadium on Monday the 22nd.
No kidding.
And of course, that's another thing that bunts us all together is we're actually old enough to go get the.
So Nigel, along the way, there's going to be like one of those great places that you always want to go to eat breakfast at that you're never going to get up in that time in the morning. Scope that one out for the way home, and it was worth it.
Great life wisdom from Danny Zalisco right there.
Believe me,
I end up with a meal somehow, or something good.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you for today. Seriously, like like you, Mick, I enjoyed every second of this, and
it really is.
I feel like we have some magic here. So thank you for helping us to create it.
Well, sell it. Don't sell it to somebody. Let's make some money.
Yeah, we need to come back and tell all the Compton Terrace stories.
Okay.
Mark,
we'll do Compton Terrace episode.
Mark down a hit sheet of stuff that you want to talk about, and we'll interview me.
Seriously.
Absolutely. We could talk about shows. You remember that Nigel and I actually worked side by side on a few shows like Compton Terrace. You know, where he took two production managers to actually pull the show up. You know, so it was very rare, but we did actually rub shoulders.
Well, we should schedule another call next week.
Let's do it.
I'm
all in.
Let's get it while it's hot.
I have two of the funniest Compton Terrace stories that anybody who watches this will be howling. And one of them does involve you, Danny.
All right.
It was after a Grateful Dead show in April.
Do me a favor and save this one for the next.
Don't tell us now. Don't tell us ahead of time. We got it.
Everybody's going to try and leave here at 6:00. You know what happens at 6? They turn into pumpkins.
All right, so we'll let you go. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. God bless you, buddy. Thank you.
Bye, boys.
Danny.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nigel.
We'll do it next week.